Hello. Our story is Hapless. It's about a covert, depraved segregationist, Lara, who's cultivated a granola veneer as a college student, but it does little to cloak her contempt for blacks, especially men. Lara Margaret Gerber had done a belly flop in the office, but didn't think of excusing herself to either witness. Having cultivated a granola veneer in college, she'd long since done away with skirts, patent leather shoes, excess pounds, makeup, bodyscaping, and men. At 5'2", lugging along a lackluster career, she'd acceded to scores of grays that barely hemmed her drooping 57 years young liver-spotted shoulders. Her chipped wire rims exuded specious intellectualism, an appropriate appurtenance for a pretentious vegan bohemian pre-health counselor. Lara's faux compassion was a burnished specialty. Buttressed as it was by perfect teeth, she wittingly foisted to affect a smile that sucked in white folk delirious with delusional supremacy, who mechanically leased legitimacy upon her retracted facial musculature. It didn't pass muster with Miles. He saw Beelzebub, deceiving, distorting, deliberate, inviting us all to invest in the unrighteous wisdom that failed her on that blustery, vernal afternoon during a meeting with a jittery senior. Eyeing his school list, she reflexively cautioned the heavyset pre-med student about one in particular. Howard, it's an unusual environment, she chirped. Lara's grotesque duplicity rendered him aghast and blushing. Tori, gasping in sotto voce, purloined a glance at the poker-faced black man in the corner and declared, "It's an excellent medical school. That's why I'm applying." Lara had assumed, since Howard would never have been on her list, that Tori must not know much about the place. What will those coons do to him, she thought. You see, she'd grown up in Inwood, Queens, New York, a working-class precinct in proximity to where Donald Trump's parents, Fred and Mary Ann, had settled. Just ahead of World War I, her grandparents had migrated from Exeter, West Virginia, part of a hungry Appalachian contingent who'd braved the trek north seeking factory work, assembling military hardware. They'd raised Laura's mom, Carrie, to be a true blue bigot, freely flinging about that porch monkey epithet loudly and often. Carrie had even attended local Ku Klux Klan meetings where she'd made Fred Trump's acquaintance just before his arrest at a demonstration gone awry. A picnic drunk, Carrie'd smash things on the patio walls whenever she discovered Laura's dad, Steve, a second-generation German immigrant, straying, excoriating him in a shrill key that became background noise to fellow tenement dwellers. Nevertheless, they raised two sons, one younger than Lara. A smart girl who became fed up with parental domestic disputes, she resolved to excel at Eleanor Roosevelt High School, to skedaddle life as she'd known it. She won a scholarship to Granola in 1981. She had fantasized about medical school, but was unable to wrap her mind around high school chemistry, her words, and struggled in her physics for poets class. They were her only C grades. So she majored in history, as well as how to comport herself as an affluent, latte-guzzling liberal, artfully downplaying her King's English when interacting with the occasional black student, making studied references to their icons. MLK and Patti LaBelle seemed always to work. She pretended to vote Democratic. Hers was an existential tussle, suppressing an entrenched belief in black inferiority within a campus culture that decreed eugenics in amplified defiance of Reaganomics, welfare queenism, and getting down pat the liberal narrative, as did the pseudo-Marxist hippies at UC Berkeley in the 1960s. Now, some 3 decades later in the great Granite State, Lara rode white privilege bareback from wellness office clerk to pre-med advisor at an Ivy. This would be as close to becoming a doctor as she'd ever get. Her attempts to marry one failed. In her mind, aspiring physicians were superior. They are a privilege to interact with, she purred, a true honor to be in their company. Apparently she never heard of Dr. Mengele. And just exactly how is Howard an unusual environment? Queried the cornered black man after Tori departed. She sat, eyes cascaded. Had I been applying to Vermont's medical school with 0% black students, would you have said as much? He pressed. What a stupid fuck, she thought. To Miles, this canker-infested space was past salvaging. Lara's boss, ophthalmologist Mick, was as much in denial and as delusional. He asserted anyone who advised and treated people from all walks could not be racist. Only the low IQ'd could be so. I guess he never heard of white supremacist Shockley, who won the Nobel Prize in Physics. A psychiatrist's son, medium height, a tad portly, of perspicuous nose, thickly lensed, self-proclaimed liberal, possessed of repressed misogyny, discreetly contained by a meticulously milled New England bigotry. Mick relished his public stature as a racist free doc, not grasping the irony of the pseudo-oxymoronic label. To boot, he'd made black friends in med school at UCSF. That evidence was sufficient for him. But this Negro, Miles, he brought on board to supervise Lara, was not white differential. He was assertive, skeptical, demanding of respect, calling out Lara's racist comments about Howard, not to mention ripping her supposedly subtle aspersions on Asians and Latinos. Asians need to present a more glittering set of credentials when they're applying to graduate school, she chirped. Miles wasn't colorblind, apologetic, gratuitous, or longing for the bluest eyes the way blacks do. Miles wouldn't steer Dartmouth students quite the way the administration wanted. He wasn't white enough. He wasn't white at all.